The night shift on Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet. Lieutenant Amy Phillips sat at her console, watching the endless stream of static and cosmic noise that filled the galaxy. Most nights, nothing interesting happened. Ships reported their positions, traders sent cargo updates, and the occasional meteor shower created brief interference patterns. Tonight was different. At exactly 0347 hours, Amy's equipment picked up something strange. A signal was coming from the outer rim of known space from a system called Kepler 442. The transmission was weak and broken, but it was definitely artificial. Someone was trying to communicate. Amy adjusted her headset and listened carefully. The voice speaking was not human. The words were in universal standard, the common language used for trade between different species, but the accent was completely foreign. Worse than that, the speaker sounded terrified. "Help us," the voice said through the static. "Please, anyone who can hear this message, we are the Zalari people of Kepler 442b. Our world is under attack. The Vorthak Empire has surrounded our planet with their war fleet. We have maybe days before they destroy everything we have built." Amy felt her heart race. She had heard of the Vorthak Empire. Every spacefaring species knew about them. They were conquerors who traveled from system to system, enslaving entire planets. They showed no mercy to anyone who opposed them. The voice continued, becoming more desperate. "We are scientists and artists. We have no weapons to fight them. We helped human explorers 23 years ago when their ship was damaged in our system. We gave them food and shelter for 3 months. Please, if any humans can hear this, we need your help. We do not want to die." Amy immediately called her supervisor, Sergeant Bob Turner, who rushed to her station. Together they listened to the full message, which repeated every few minutes. Each time the signal grew weaker. "We need to get this to Dr. Ben Carter," Bob said. "If anyone can figure out exactly what they're saying, it's him." Dr. Carter was the station's expert on alien languages. He had spent years studying how different species communicated. When Amy and Bob woke him up and played the recording, his face grew serious. "I know about the Zalari," Ben said, rubbing his tired eyes. "They're peaceful people. They've never hurt anyone. Their whole culture is based on learning and creating beautiful things. If the Vorthak are attacking them, it's not because they're a threat. It's because the Vorthak want their resources and their planet." Ben worked through the night to decode more of the message. By morning, he had translated additional parts that made the situation even worse. The Zalari had been sending out distress calls for 3 days, begging for help from anyone in the galaxy. No one had responded. Other species were too afraid of the Vorthak to get involved. The message also contained more details about the human explorers they had helped decades ago. The research ship Darwin had suffered engine failure while studying stellar formations. The crew would have died without Zalari assistance. Captain Frank Wilson and his team had lived on the planet's surface for 3 months while repairing their ship. Amy looked up Captain Wilson in the Earth Fleet database. He was now Admiral Wilson, retired but still living on Earth. Bob contacted him immediately. "I remember the Zalari perfectly," Admiral Wilson told them over the video call. "Kindest people I've ever met. They didn't have to help us, but they shared everything they had. Their leader, Elder Kethna, even gave us some of their crystal technology to help fix our engines. My crew would be dead without them." The recording and Admiral Wilson's testimony were sent directly to Fleet Command on Earth. Within hours, it reached the desk of Admiral Lisa Grant, the commanding officer of Earth's entire space fleet. Admiral Grant was known throughout the fleet as a tough but fair leader. She had served on the frontier for 20 years, fighting pirates and protecting human colonies. She had also never forgotten a favor or abandoned an ally. Grant called an emergency meeting of the Fleet Council. The situation was complex. Earth's military was spread across dozens of systems, protecting human colonies and trade routes. Kepler 442 was 2 weeks away through dangerous space controlled by hostile forces. Sending ships there would leave other areas defenseless. "The political risk is enormous," said Councilman Dave Martin. "If we lose ships fighting the Vorthak, other enemies might attack our colonies. We have to think about protecting our own people first." "The Vorthak fleet is massive," added General Susan Wright. "Our intelligence reports say they have at least 200 warships surrounding the planet. We'd be outnumbered 5-1. Admiral Grant listened to all the arguments. She understood the risks, but she also remembered something her old mentor had taught her. Character is what you do when nobody's watching, and nobody's making you do it. She stood up and faced the council. 23 years ago, the Zalari saved the lives of 37 human beings. They didn't have to. They could have let our people die. But they didn't, because that's not who they are. Now they're asking for our help. Grant walked to the large star map on the wall and pointed to the Kepler 442 system. These people are scientists and artists. They've never hurt anyone. They're about to be wiped out by an empire that destroys everything beautiful in the galaxy. If we don't help them, who will? The room was quiet for a long moment. Earth has a motto, Grant continued, leave no one behind. That doesn't just apply to humans. It applies to anyone who stood by us when we needed help. The vote was close, but Admiral Grant got permission to act. Within 6 hours, she had issued orders that would change galactic history. Operation Starlight is now active, she announced, to the fleet. All available ships are to assemble at Staging Point Alpha. We're going to show the galaxy that when someone helps Earth, Earth remembers. Across human space, warships changed course and headed for the assembly point. The largest fleet in human history was about to be born, all because a young lieutenant had been listening carefully during the night shift. In the Kepler 442 system, the Zalari huddled in their underground shelters as Vorthak ships began bombing their cities. They had stopped sending distress calls. No one was coming to help them. They were wrong. The assembly of Earth's greatest armada took place at Staging Point Alpha, a hidden military base in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Ships arrived from every corner of human space. Battleships that normally protected the outer colonies, destroyers that hunted pirates, carriers loaded with fighter squadrons, and support vessels carrying supplies and medical equipment. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Valiant, watching through the viewports as more ships continued to arrive. In her 30 years of service, she had never seen so many human warships in one place. The sight was both inspiring and terrifying. Final count, Admiral, reported her aide, Lieutenant Karen Mills. We have 147 combat vessels and 38 support ships. Total crew complement is just over 50,000. Grant nodded. It was the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled, but she knew it might not be enough. Intelligence reports from the Kepler 442 system showed that Warlord Grexmore commanded over 300 Vorthak ships. The humans would be badly outnumbered. Ma'am, called Captain Rick Thompson from his ship, the heavy battleship UES Thunder. Engineering reports that Chief Rodriguez has finished installing the experimental jump drive modifications on all vessels. He says we can make the journey in 10 days instead of 14, but there are risks. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez appeared on the main screen, his face streaked with grease and exhaustion. He had been working for 18 hours straight. Admiral, I've pushed the jump drives beyond normal limits. We can travel faster than any human fleet has ever moved, but if something goes wrong, we could lose ships during the jumps. What kind of risks are we talking about, Chief? Grant asked. Jump drive failure could tear a ship apart, Rodriguez admitted, or dump it in normal space light years from where it's supposed to be. I've run every calculation I can, but we're in unknown territory here. Grant considered the options. Every day they delayed meant more Zalari civilians would die, but losing ships during the journey would make their mission impossible. Chief, what are our chances of getting the entire fleet to Kepler 442 intact? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Honestly, Admiral, maybe 80%. We'll probably lose some ships along the way. Commander Kate Murphy, leader of the Marine Division, spoke up from her transport ship. Admiral, my people are ready to take that risk. We've trained for missions like this our whole careers. Let's go save some lives. Similar messages came from ship commanders throughout the fleet. Despite the dangers, every captain volunteered to continue the mission. All ships prepare for jump sequence, Grant ordered. We're going to Kepler 442, and we're going to get there fast. The fleet entered hyperspace in waves, each group of ships following carefully calculated paths through dimensions that human science barely understood. The modified jump drives pushed against the laws of physics, carrying the Armada toward a distant world at speeds that should have been impossible. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison piloted his scout ship Liberty through the outer edges of the Kepler 442 system. He had arrived ahead of the main fleet to gather intelligence and assess the situation. What he found was worse than anyone had expected. The Vorthak fleet surrounded the planet like a metal cloud. Massive dreadnoughts floated in high orbit while smaller ships bombed cities on the surface. The beautiful crystal structures that the Zalari had built over centuries were being systematically destroyed. Morrison kept his ship hidden behind the system's largest moon while scanning Vorthak communications. The enemy commander, Warlord Grex Moore, was preparing for the final assault. In less than 48 hours, he planned to land ground forces and begin enslaving any Zalari who survived the bombardment. Using a tight beam transmission, Morrison managed to contact the planet's surface. The signal was picked up by Elder Kethna, the Zalari leader who had helped the human research team decades earlier. Elder Kethna, this is Captain Morrison of the Earth Fleet ship Liberty. We received your distress call. Help is coming. The old Zalari's voice was weak, but filled with sudden hope. Captain Morrison, I remember your people. Are you truly here? Yes, and I'm not alone. Admiral Grant is bringing the largest fleet in human history. We need you to hold on for 8 more days. 8 days? Kethna sounded uncertain. I do not know if we can survive that long. The Vorthak bombing has not stopped for 72 hours. Our people are hiding in deep shelters, but our food and medical supplies are running low. Morrison felt anger building in his chest as he watched another Vorthak bomber destroy a Zalari hospital. Elder, you saved human lives 23 years ago. Now we're going to save yours. That's a promise. Back in hyperspace, the human fleet faced its first crisis. The destroyer UES Phoenix suffered a jump drive failure while transiting between dimensions. Captain Janet Lee managed to restart the engines just before her ship was torn apart, but the Phoenix dropped out of hyperspace damaged and alone. All ships, this is Admiral Grant, she announced over the fleet communication system. The Phoenix is missing. Captain Thompson, take the Thunder and 2 escorts to find them. Captain Thompson's rescue mission took 6 hours, but they located the Phoenix drifting in normal space. Chief Rodriguez worked with the destroyer's engineering team to make emergency repairs. They managed to get the ship operational again, but it would have to travel the rest of the way at reduced speed. No one gets left behind, Grant told her officers. We started this mission with 185 ships, and we're finishing it with 185 ships. As the fleet continued its impossible journey, word of the mission began spreading throughout human space. On Earth, civilians gathered around news broadcasts following the progress of their military. On the frontier colonies, people who had never heard of the Zalari began praying for the success of Admiral Grant's fleet. The journey pushed both technology and human endurance to their limits. Engineering crews worked around the clock to maintain the modified jump drives. Medical teams treated space sickness caused by the rapid dimensional transitions. Supply officers rationed food and water as the fleet consumed resources faster than expected. On the 7th day, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. Vorthak patrol squadrons were moving to intercept them. Somehow the enemy had learned about the approaching human fleet. How many ships? Grant asked Lieutenant Mills. 24 Vorthak cruisers, moving to block our final jump point, Mills reported. If we continue on our current course, we'll have to fight our way through them. Captain Morrison, still hiding in the Kepler 442 system, provided the answer. Admiral, I'm monitoring Vorthak communications. They detected our hyperspace signatures 2 days ago. Grexmore is sending ships to stop us from reaching the planet. Grant studied the tactical display. The Vorthak cruisers were positioning themselves perfectly to ambush the human fleet as it emerged from hyperspace. A conventional approach would result in heavy casualties. Chief Rodriguez, she called to the engineering deck, can you give me one more miracle? Can we jump past their patrol line and arrive directly in the inner system? Rodriguez's face appeared, on screen looking exhausted but determined. Admiral, that kind of precision jump has never been attempted with a fleet this size. If we're off by even a small margin, we could crash into the planet or emerge inside a star. But it's possible. Yes, ma'am, it's possible. Grant looked around the bridge at her officers. These people had followed her across the galaxy to help strangers in need. They deserved to know the truth about what they were facing. Everyone listen carefully, she announced to the entire fleet. In 18 hours, we're going to attempt the most dangerous hyperspace jump in human history. We're going to bypass the Vorthak patrol and arrive directly at Kepler 442. Some of us might not make it. She paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. But there are innocent people down there who are counting on us. 23 years ago, they saved human lives without asking for anything in return. Now it's our turn. We're going to show the galaxy what humans do when our friends are in trouble. The response was immediate. Every ship in the fleet signaled their readiness to continue. Not a single captain requested to return home. 18 hours later, Earth's greatest armada prepared for the final jump. In the Kepler 442 system, Warlord Grexmore was preparing to begin the ground invasion of the Zalari homeworld. Neither side was prepared for what was about to happen. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like thunder breaking across a clear sky. One moment, the space around Kepler 442 belonged entirely to the Vorthak Empire. The next moment, 185 human warships materialized in perfect formation, their weapons already targeting enemy vessels. On the bridge of his massive dreadnought, Warlord Grexmore stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His sensors showed ships using technology that should not have existed. Human vessels that moved faster than Vorthak cruisers, energy shields that deflected weapons designed to cut through asteroid belts, and coordination systems that allowed the entire fleet to act as a single organism. Impossible, Grexmore growled to his officers. Humans are a young species. Their technology is primitive. How are they here? His communications officer, a nervous Vorthak named Thekvar, looked up from his console. Warlord, the human fleet commander is requesting to speak with you directly. Put them through, Grexmore snarled. I want to hear what these insects have to say before I crush them. Admiral Grant's image appeared on the main view screen. She stood straight and calm, her hands clasped behind her back. Behind her, the bridge of the UES Valiant hummed with efficient activity. Warlord Grexmore, Grant said in a clear, steady voice. I am Admiral Lisa Grant of the Earth Fleet. You are attacking a peaceful civilization under the protection of humanity. I am ordering you to withdraw your forces immediately and leave this system. Grexmore laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. You dare to give orders to the Vorthak Empire? Your entire fleet is outnumbered 3-1. I will. Enjoy watching your ships burn before I finish destroying this pathetic planet. You're welcome to try, Grant replied calmly. But I should warn you that humans don't fight the way other species do. We don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight to protect the innocent. That makes us very dangerous. The communication ended, and both fleets prepared for battle. Grant turned to her weapons officer. Commander Paul Hughes, deploy all fighter squadrons. I want them to hit the Vorthak carriers first. Take out their small craft before they can launch. Yes, ma'am, Hughes replied. He was Earth's best pilot, and he led the most skilled fighter squadron in human space. Within minutes, 200 human fighters were streaming toward the enemy fleet, moving in patterns that confused Vorthak targeting computers. Captain Rick Thompson positioned his battleship Thunder at the front of the battle line. His ship was one of the most powerful vessels in the human fleet, carrying weapons that could crack moon-sized asteroids. But even Thompson was nervous about facing Vorthak dreadnoughts. All ships, this is Admiral Grant, came the voice over the communication system. Execute attack pattern Delta, stay in formation, and trust your training. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for people who can't fight back. The space battle began with a massive exchange of energy weapons. Vorthak ships fired first, sending streams of plasma that should have destroyed the approaching human fleet. Instead, they watched in shock as human shields absorbed the impact and continued advancing. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Walsh prepared his Marine landing force aboard the assault ship UES Ranger. His job was to get ground forces to the planet's surface and protect Zalari civilians. But first, the fleet had to break through the orbital defenses. Colonel, reported Specialist Nina Brooks from her electronic warfare station. I'm detecting massive interference from Vorthak jamming systems. They're trying to block our communications with the planet. Can you break through? Walsh asked. Brooks smiled grimly. Sir, I've been jamming pirates and smugglers for 10 years. Vorthak technology is good, but human electronic warfare is better. Within minutes, Brooks had not only broken through the enemy jamming but had begun interfering with Vorthak communications. Enemy ships found themselves unable to coordinate their attacks, while human vessels shared targeting data across the entire fleet. The first major engagement occurred when Commander Hughes led his fighters against the Vorthak carrier destroyer of Worlds. The massive enemy ship launched its own fighter squadrons, expecting to overwhelm the smaller human force through sheer numbers. Instead, the Vorthak pilots found themselves facing opponents who fought with a combination of advanced technology and desperate courage. Human fighters moved like sharks through space, striking at weak points in Vorthak formations and disappearing before return fire could hit them. "This is impossible," transmitted one Vorthak pilot before his ship exploded under human fire. "They're everywhere at once." Hughes led his squadron in a direct attack on the carrier's main hangar bay. Human fighters dove through defensive fire that should have destroyed them, protected by shields that bent the laws of physics. The attack succeeded, and the Destroyer of Worlds erupted in a ball of flame that could be seen from the planet's surface. Captain Thompson brought the Thunder into direct combat with a Vorthak dreadnought twice its size. The enemy ship, commanded by sub-warlord Kextor, had weapons that could destroy cities. But Thompson had something the Vorthak didn't expect: tactics developed through decades of fighting in the worst places in the galaxy. "All batteries, concentrate fire on their engine sections," Thompson ordered. "Don't try to destroy them. Just make sure they can't run away." The Thunder's main guns spoke with voices like controlled thunder. Energy beams designed to cut through asteroid mining platforms struck the Vorthak dreadnought's propulsion systems. The massive enemy ship found itself crippled and defenseless. Sub-warlord Kextor tried to surrender, but Thompson was already moving on to the next target. The human fleet wasn't interested in taking prisoners. They were focused on breaking the siege as quickly as possible. On the planet's surface, Elder Kethna and the surviving Zalari watched the space battle through emergency telescopes. They had never seen anything like it. The humans fought with a precision and determination that seemed almost supernatural. "How are they doing this?" asked Kethna's aide, a young Zalari named Sevlin. "The Vorthak Empire has conquered 100 worlds. No one has ever defeated them in open battle." Kethna remembered the human research team that had lived on their world decades earlier. He had observed them carefully during their 3-month stay. "Humans are different from other species," he said quietly. "They don't just fight to win. They fight because they believe in something." The space battle continued for 6 hours. Slowly, methodically, the human fleet carved through Vorthak defenses. Every time the enemy tried to adapt to human tactics, Admiral Grant changed the strategy. When Vorthak ships concentrated their fire, human vessels scattered and attacked from multiple directions. When the enemy tried to retreat, human forces cut off escape routes. Warlord Grexmore realized he was facing something his empire had never encountered before: an opponent that refused to be intimidated. Vorthak military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and psychological warfare. They expected enemies to surrender when faced with superior numbers. Humans didn't surrender. They adapted. "Warlord," reported his tactical officer, "we have lost 47 ships. The humans have lost only 12. Their shields and weapons are more advanced than our intelligence reports indicated." Grexmore snarled in frustration. "How is this possible? They're supposed to be a primitive species." The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Morrison, still hiding behind the system's moon in his scout ship, had been monitoring Vorthak communications throughout the battle. He transmitted a message directly to Grexmore's command ship. "Warlord, this is Captain Morrison of the Earth Fleet. You want to know why we're winning? It's because we're not fighting for an empire. We're fighting for friends." Grexmore's face twisted with rage. "I will destroy every human ship in this system. I will turn your homeworld to ash." "You're welcome to try," Morrison replied. But first, you might want to look at your long-range sensors. Grexmoor's tactical officer checked the displays and went pale. Warlord, more human ships are approaching. A second fleet even larger than the first. It was a lie, but Grexmoor didn't know that. Morrison had used electronic warfare techniques to create false sensor readings. The Vorthak commander now believed he was facing the entire human military. The psychological impact was devastating. Vorthak morale, already shaken by unexpected resistance, collapsed completely. Ship commanders began requesting permission to withdraw. Ground forces reported that they were unable to complete the invasion while under attack from orbit. Admiral Grant saw the opportunity and pressed her advantage. All ships, this is Admiral Grant. The enemy is breaking. Drive them from this system and show them what happens when someone threatens our friends. The human fleet surged forward like a tide of righteous anger. Vorthak ships that had been bombarding the planet found themselves under attack from opponents who fought with the fury of avenging angels. By the end of the day, the siege of Kepler 442 was broken. 60 Vorthak ships had been destroyed, and the rest were fleeing toward the outer system. But Warlord Grexmoor was not finished. He had called for reinforcements from the nearest Vorthak fortress world. The real battle was about to begin. The reinforcements arrived 3 days later, emerging from hyperspace like a metallic storm. Admiral Grant watched from the bridge of the Valiant as sensors counted the new arrivals. 230 fresh Vorthak warships, led by the massive fortress ship Inevitable Conquest. Combined with Grexmoor's surviving forces, the enemy now outnumbered the human fleet 3-1. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Karen Mills, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. The new fleet is commanded by Supreme Warlord Thekmordai. Intelligence files show he's never lost a battle. He's conquered 47 star systems. Grant studied the tactical display. The human fleet had performed miracles during the first battle, but they had also taken damage. 15 ships were operating with reduced capabilities and ammunition stores were running low. Facing fresh enemy forces with superior numbers would test human resolve to its limits. "Ma'am," called Captain Danny Foster from his medical ship UES Mercy, "I've got 3,000 Zalari civilians aboard who were evacuated from the bombed cities. My medical teams are treating their wounded, but we need more time to get them to safety." Time was exactly what they didn't have. The new Vorthak fleet was already moving into attack formation, and Thekmordai had begun broadcasting surrender, demands across all frequencies. "Human Commander," came the Supreme Warlord's voice speaking in heavily accented Universal Standard. "You have fought bravely, but your position is hopeless. Surrender now, and I will allow your ships to withdraw. Continue fighting, and I will destroy every human vessel and enslave your entire species." Grant's response was broadcast throughout the system, reaching not just the Vorthak fleets but monitoring stations across the galaxy. "Supreme Warlord Thekmordai, this is Admiral Lisa Grant of the Earth Fleet. We came here to protect innocent people from your Empire's aggression. We're not leaving until the job is done." The galactic community listened to the exchange with growing amazement. No one had ever defied the Vorthak Empire so directly. Most species either submitted immediately or were crushed within hours. Humans were doing something unprecedented. They were standing firm against impossible odds. On the planet below, Elder Keth Na coordinated with human ground forces led by Lieutenant Colonel Steve Walsh. The Marines had established defensive positions around Zalari population centers, working alongside local resistance fighters who had been inspired by human courage. "Colonel Walsh," Keith Na said through his translator device, "my people want to help in the battle. We have crystal-based energy weapons that might be effective against Vorthak armor." Walsh examined the Zalari weapons with interest. They were elegant devices that focused ambient energy into devastating beams. "Elder, these could make a real difference. Can your people teach my Marines how to use them?" "We will do more than that," Kethna replied. "We will fight alongside you. The humans risked everything to save us. The least we can do is stand with you when the enemy comes." In space, the second battle began with Thekmordai's attempt to demonstrate Vorthak superiority. He sent 50 ships in a direct assault on the human battle line, expecting to break through their defenses quickly. Instead, he discovered that humans had used the 3-day break to prepare surprises. Major Chris Bell led a special operations team that had been conducting covert missions throughout the system. While the main fleets prepared for battle, Bell's commandos had been planting explosives on Vorthak supply depots and communications relays hidden in the asteroid belt. "Admiral, this is Major Bell," came the transmission from deep space. "We've completed sabotage operations on 17 enemy supply points. When you give the word, we can cut their logistics chain." "Excellent work, Major," Grant replied. "Execute the operation when the battle begins." Technical Sergeant Alex Turner worked frantically in the Thunder's engine room as the ship took heavy fire from multiple Vorthak cruisers. Hull breaches had damaged critical systems and the ship's jump drive was operating at only 60% capacity. But Turner refused to give up. "Captain Thompson," he called over the communication system, "I can give you full power for one more attack run, but after that, we'll need at least an hour for repairs." "How long will full power last?" Thompson asked from the bridge. "Maybe 10 minutes, sir, but there'll be a hell of a 10 minutes. Thompson smiled grimly. "That's all we need, Sergeant. Give me everything you've got." The Thunder surged forward like a wounded predator, its weapons blazing with fury. The massive battleship drove directly into the center of a Vorthak formation, destroying 3 enemy cruisers before its systems finally overloaded. Turner's quick thinking and technical skill had turned certain defeat into tactical victory. Specialist. Nina Brooks continued her electronic warfare campaign from her station aboard the command ship. She had been jamming Vorthak communications for hours, but now she attempted something more ambitious, hacking into the enemy fleet's tactical computers. "Admiral," Brooks reported excitedly, "I've penetrated their command network. I can see their battle plans and troop movements. Thekmordai is planning to send ground forces to 3 different landing sites while his main fleet keeps us busy." "Can you disrupt their coordination?" Grant asked. "Already working on it, ma'am. I'm sending false orders to their ground assault ships. They think they're supposed to land at coordinates that will put them in the middle of our defensive positions." The effectiveness of human electronic warfare shocked the Vorthak commanders. They had conquered dozens of species, but none had ever turned their own technology against them so effectively. Confusion spread through their ranks as orders contradicted each other, and targeting systems provided false information. As the battle intensified, other galactic civilizations began taking notice. The Hegemony Council, which governed relations between major species, held an emergency session to discuss the conflict. For the first time in centuries, they were watching someone successfully resist Vorthak expansion. "The humans are demonstrating something we thought was impossible," declared Ambassador Velkaris of the Centauri Republic. "They're proving that the Vorthak Empire can be defeated." Other species began sending covert support. The Andorian Confederacy provided intelligence about Vorthak fleet movements. The Rigel Trade Union transmitted technical specifications for advanced shield generators. The message was clear: the galaxy was tired of Vorthak tyranny. Captain Morrison, still conducting reconnaissance from his hidden position, intercepted communications from the arriving support. "Admiral, I'm detecting at least 12 different species providing assistance to our fleet. Some are sending supplies, others are jamming Vorthak sensors from long range." Grant felt a surge of hope. Humanity's stand against the Vorthak Empire was inspiring oppressed species throughout the galaxy. But the immediate situation remained desperate. Even with galactic support, the human fleet was taking heavy casualties. "Ma'am," reported Commander Paul Hughes from his fighter squadron, "we've lost 37 fighters and ammunition is running low. The pilots are exhausted, but they're still fighting." "Can you maintain operations?" Grant asked. Hughes's voice carried grim determination. "Admiral, my pilots will keep fighting until the last ship is destroyed or the enemy retreats. That's what humans do." The battle raged for 18 hours without pause. Human ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting through sheer determination. Engineers performed miracles to keep damaged systems operational. Medical teams treated wounded crew members while under fire. Supply officers rationed ammunition and power cells to squeeze every advantage from limited resources. Warlord Grex Moore, commanding the original invasion force, found himself questioning everything he had believed about warfare. The humans fought, with a ferocity and determination that defied all military logic. Even when outnumbered and outgunned, they refused to yield. "Supreme Warlord," he transmitted to Thekmordai, "the humans are not fighting like any enemy we've encountered before. They should have surrendered hours ago." "They're insects," Thekmordai replied angrily. "Crush them with superior numbers." But superior numbers weren't working. Every time Vorthak forces concentrated their attack, human commanders adapted new tactics. When the enemy tried to overwhelm specific sectors, human ships appeared from unexpected directions. When Vorthak ground forces attempted to land, they found themselves walking into carefully prepared ambushes. The turning point came when Elder Kethna made a decision that surprised everyone. The Zalari leader contacted Admiral Grant directly with an offer that would change the course of the battle. "Admiral Grant," Kethna said, "my people have been observing the battle from our shelters. We see how your warriors fight to protect us even when facing impossible odds. We want to help." "Elder, your people are civilians," Grant replied. "This is a military operation." "No, Admiral. This is a fight for the future of our civilization. My people have crystal technology that could enhance your weapons and shields. We know this system better than the Vorthak do. Most importantly, we understand that sometimes peaceful people must fight to preserve peace." Within hours, Zalari technicians were working alongside human engineers to modify ship systems. Zalari pilots who had never seen combat began flying alongside human fighter squadrons. The defending fleet grew stronger as two species combined their saint. The race against time began with Admiral Grant making the hardest decision of her career. To stop the planetary bombardment weapon, the human fleet would have to concentrate all their remaining ships in a direct assault on the inevitable conquest. It would be a suicide mission against the most heavily defended target in the Vorthak fleet. "All ship commanders, this is Admiral Grant," she announced across the fleet communication system. "I'm not going to lie to you about our chances. We're facing a fortress ship with enough firepower to destroy moons. Most of us probably won't survive the next hour, but if we don't try, everyone on that planet will die." The response came immediately from every ship in the fleet. Captain Rick Thompson spoke for all of them. "Admiral, we came here to save lives. That mission hasn't changed. The Thunder is ready for whatever you need." Grant felt pride surge through her chest. These were the finest people humanity had ever produced, and they were about to prove it to the galaxy. "Form up for attack pattern Omega," she ordered. "All fighters, all bombers, all support craft. We're putting everything we have into this. Attack." The human fleet reformed into a spearhead formation with the most heavily armed ships at the front. The Valiant led the charge, followed by the Thunder and 12 other battleships. Behind them came destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels, while fighter squadrons formed a protective screen around the larger ships. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez worked frantically in the Valiant's engine room, pushing the ship's systems beyond all safety limits. "Admiral, I can give you emergency power for 20 minutes, but after that, we'll have total system failure." 20 minutes is all we need, Chief," Grant replied. "Just get us close enough to hurt them." The charge began with the human fleet accelerating toward the center of the Vorthak formation. Enemy ships tried to intercept them, but the humans had learned to use speed and coordination to slice through superior numbers. Ships that tried to block their path found themselves under attack from multiple directions. Commander Paul Hughes led his remaining fighter squadrons in desperate attacks on Vorthak point defense systems. Human pilots flew their ships through walls of enemy fire, accepting impossible odds to clear the way for the larger vessels. "This is Hughes to all fighters," he transmitted as his squadron dove into the teeth of the enemy formation. "We're not coming back from this one, but we're going to make it count. For Earth, for the Zalari, and for everyone who believes that good people deserve protection." The fighters struck like arrows fired from a divine bow. Vorthak defensive positions that should have been impregnable crumbled under the assault of pilots who fought with the fury of avenging angels. Hughes himself flew directly into the main gun battery of a Vorthak cruiser, destroying both his fighter and the enemy weapon in a ball of nuclear fire. Captain Danny Foster piloted his medical ship Mercy through the battle zone, evacuating wounded. crew members from damaged human vessels. His ship had no weapons, but Foster refused to abandon his duty to save lives. Vorthak fighters that tried to attack the medical ship found themselves under fire from every human vessel in range. "This is Captain Foster to all ships," he transmitted, while treating wounded Marines in his sickbay. "The Zalari civilians we evacuated want everyone to know they're praying for us. They say we've shown them what courage really means." The words spread through the fleet, giving exhausted crews new strength. They were fighting not just for strangers, but for people who had become friends. Major Chris Bell and his Special Operations team had been conducting sabotage missions behind enemy lines throughout the battle. Now they attempted their most dangerous operation yet, infiltrating the inevitable conquest itself to disable the planetary bombardment weapon from within. "Admiral, this is Bell," came his transmission from somewhere inside the massive enemy ship. "My team has reached the weapon control center. We're attempting to override their targeting systems, but we're facing heavy resistance. The commandos fought their way through Vorthak security forces using a combination of advanced human weapons and captured enemy equipment. Bell himself engaged Supreme Warlord Thek Mordai in personal combat, while his team worked to sabotage the World Killer. You cannot stop the inevitable," Thek Mordai snarled as he fought the human Special Operations officer. "The Vorthak Empire has conquered 100 worlds. We will not be defeated by insects." Bell ducked under the alien's energy sword and struck back with his plasma rifle. "You're right about one thing," he replied grimly. "You won't be defeated by insects. You'll be defeated by humans." The fight raged through the ship's command center, while Bell's team raced to complete their mission. Specialist Alex Turner worked to override the weapon's firing controls while under fire from Vorthak guards. Technical Sergeant Nina Brooks used her electronic warfare skills to jam enemy communications and prevent reinforcements from reaching the command center. "Major, I've got partial control of the targeting system," Turner reported while diving behind cover. "I can delay the firing sequence, but I can't stop it completely." "How long can you give us?" Bell asked, still fighting Thek Mordai. "Maybe 30 minutes, sir. After that, the weapon will fire automatically." Bell made a desperate decision. He activated the explosive charges his team had planted throughout the ship's critical systems. The blast would destroy the planetary bombardment weapon, but it would also kill everyone aboard the enemy flagship. "Admiral Grant, this is Major Bell," he transmitted to the fleet. "We've sabotaged the World Killer, but we're not making it off this ship. Take care of the Zalari for us." The explosion that followed could be seen throughout the star system. The inevitable conquest, the most powerful ship in the Vorthak fleet, broke apart in a cascade of secondary explosions. The planetary bombardment weapon died with it along with Bell's entire team. But their sacrifice gave the human fleet the opening it needed. With their flagship destroyed and their supreme commander dead, Vorthak morale collapsed. Ships that had fought with ruthless efficiency began breaking formation and attempting to retreat. Admiral Grant saw the opportunity and pressed the attack. "All ships, this is Admiral Grant. The enemy is breaking. Drive them from this system and make sure they never come back." The final phase of the battle was swift and decisive. Vorthak ships that tried to escape found their retreat blocked by human destroyers. Those that attempted to surrender were escorted to the outer system, under heavy guard. Within 3 hours, the last enemy vessel had fled or been destroyed. But the greatest surprise was yet to come. As the human fleet began damage assessment and rescue operations, long-range sensors detected new arrivals at the edge of the system. At first, the exhausted crews feared more Vorthak reinforcements. Instead, they discovered something that would reshape galactic politics forever. Captain Jake Morrison, emerging from his hiding place behind the system's moon, was the first to identify the newcomers. "Admiral, I'm reading ships from at least 15 different species. The Centauri Republic, the Andorian Confederacy, the Rigel Trade Union, and others. They're flying together in a unified formation." The lead ship transmitted a message to Admiral Grant. It was Ambassador Velcaris of the Centauri Republic, speaking for a coalition of species that had been secretly organizing throughout the battle. "Admiral Grant, this is Ambassador Velcarus representing the Free Worlds Alliance. We have been watching your stand against the Vorthak Empire with great interest. Your courage has inspired oppressed species throughout the galaxy. We would like to discuss the formation of a mutual defense pact. Grant felt exhaustion and hope warring in her chest. The human fleet had suffered heavy casualties, but they had accomplished something unprecedented. They had not only saved the Zalari civilization, but had sparked a galactic revolution against Vorthak tyranny. Ambassador, this is Admiral Grant, she replied. We would be honored to discuss cooperation between our peoples. But first, we have a planet to help rebuild and promises to keep. The aftermath of the battle became known throughout the galaxy as the miracle of Kepler 442. Human engineers worked alongside Zalari scientists to rebuild the damaged cities. Human medical teams treated wounded civilians while Zalari artists created monuments honoring the fallen heroes. Elder Kethna met personally with Admiral Grant during the reconstruction efforts. The old Zalari leader had tears in his large, dark eyes as he spoke. Admiral Grant, your people have given us something more precious than our lives, he said through his translator. You have given us hope. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy has seen that evil can be defeated by good people who refuse to surrender. Grant looked out through the viewport at the mixed fleet of human and alien ships working together in orbit. Elder, 23. Years ago, your people helped strangers who needed assistance. You didn't have to, but you did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. We just returned the favor. But at such cost, Kethna replied sadly. So many of your people died to save us. Grant thought about Major Bell and his team, about Commander Hughes and his fighter pilots, about all the crews who had given their lives to protect innocent people they had never met. Elder, those people died doing what humans do best, standing up for others who can't protect themselves. They would say it was worth it. 6 months later, the free,